Hello and good morning. If you're watching this in the morning, grab a cup of coffee with me. If you're watching this in the late afternoon, hope you're enjoying your break in the day. If you're scrolling late at night, hope you get some sleep soon. Today, we're gonna have some coffee together. We're gonna have a little bit of a garden story time about a plant that I planted 4 years ago, how I grew it up, and then what I'm gonna try to do to it now. And if you're new here, welcome to my channel. My name is Michelle. I post garden content and chicken content on social media and on YouTube. So I go by the name Gardens and Chickens. I'm super clever, as you can tell. I garden in the zone 7B, 8A. I'm on your really typical suburban lot, suburban neighborhood in Atlanta. And basically I just share what I'm doing, share plant combinations that look good, what's happening in the garden. If you like that kind of stuff, hit the subscribe button for more. So I am kneeling next to Juniperus procumbens nana. It's also known as dwarf Japanese garden juniper. It's no secret that I love all things topiary. When I saw this at my garden center for $77, I knew I wanted it, but I didn't have it in the garden budget. What I saw was next to it, there was a unstaked, tiny 1 gallon dwarf Japanese garden juniper, same variety. And I thought, hey, you know what? I've got time. I love this look. I bet I can train it upright myself. So I brought that little plant home, and look at her now, all grown up. She's basically the size of that $70 plant that I saw at the store now. So if you have the time and you're curious and you want to try it, I say go for it. But if you don't have the time, just go ahead and buy the plant. But just so you know, to get this size plant from a 1 gallon small unstaked plant took me about 3 years. In terms of work, there was very little work involved with training this upright. Once I took the leader and kind of bent it up and staked it, it grew straight up for the most part. Every once in a while, I would go in and prune it and shape it and, tie it up further. But I would say maybe a total of 30 minutes a year of work went into this shape. So now that we're at this height, I really want to take it to the next level. So what that means is teaching myself the Japanese style of pruning. Small trees that are perfectly clipped and shaped into almost cloud or step-like formations. That is called Niwaki, which basically just means garden tree. So you can think of it as bonsai for your landscape. I feel like juniper is going to be the perfect one to experiment on because it grows incredibly fast and is very forgiving. So even if I lop off a branch that I wish I didn't, it'll probably only take about a year to regrow it. Also, this is my first time trying this, so take anything that I say with a grain of salt. I've either read about it or watched it on YouTube, but I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm just going to share with you the process, whether I mess it up or not. So step 1 would be to figure out what shape you want to create in the end. So I really wanted to create that pom-pom type shape. So I'm looking at the branches, seeing which ones are in a similar direction and which I should remove. You can see this type of example when there are 2 branches stacked on top of each other. So I'm either going to remove one, or if the branches are young enough and bendy enough, I can kind of train one over to the left or to the right. You can see these branches are relatively young and move over pretty easily. So I think I might be able to bend it and keep both. As I looked at inspiration pictures, another thing that I noticed is that the branches were pretty horizontal, and you can see my branches kind of slope down. So the plan is to take some bonsai wire and see if I can get these branches to stay horizontal. Then the plan is to strip the juniper in the interior and across the stem and just leave the foliage at the end so that we get that pom-pom shape. Okay, enough theory. I'm gonna put this coffee down and I'm gonna get my gloves on and start working. You don't often see me wearing gloves on this channel, but juniper really sucks to handle, so highly recommend wearing gloves. You might be thinking, okay, what's the deal with the vest? But it's actually a really handy tool. You can grab a sheet or a shirt. If you are not sure which branch to cut, what you can do is use the vest to cover up the branch that you're not sure if you want to remove or keep. Then you can kind of stand back and evaluate whether or not it's a keeper or a goner. Let's talk tools. This is my super cheapo bonsai kit that I found on Amazon. And pruners. These are one of my favorites. They're from HoseLink, but there are lots of good options out there. Let's get started. So I'm going through and removing the inner juniper fluff. That'll help me see the overall shape of the tree a little bit better and the branching, and then I'll decide which branches to lop off. Angle change. Yes, I realize that you can't see anything from that far away, so let me bring you in closer so I can show you the full process. I'm trying to remove about half of the juniper fluff on every branch, making sure that I'm getting as close to the branch as possible, because if you leave any on there, it will just continue growing. Now I'm grabbing bonsai wire. I'll be wrapping this around each branch that I want to try to change the direction of. So if there's a branch that's facing down and I want it to go horizontal, that's what I'm going to be using the bonsai wire for. Or if it's facing to the left and I'd like it more to the center, again, bonsai wire will help me support the branch in moving and training to the other direction. So for wrapping, I'm starting by going a couple of turns around the main trunk, and then I just start wrapping down the branch, trying to go as far as I can and even into the foliage so that I have enough support. I'm pretty sure that these can be removed in a year. I'll do an update video to show kind of how things are growing and when I can remove it. Now that the branch is wrapped, I can kind of manhandle that branch and move it and shape it into the direction that I'd like it to stay. And here's a reminder of what that branch looked like before. After, before, after. You get the idea. I think the hardest part of this process was deciding which branches stay, which ones go, and which ones need to be kind of trained into a different direction. And honestly, I think the more you practice and do something, the more you learn and see. I'm not saying every cut I made was correct, and I'm sure somebody who actually knows what they're doing is cringing, but I'm learning, and so I'm sharing how I'm learning, and it's really by doing. You can read all you want. Once you start doing, that's when you really start learning. I wish there was a formula that I could share with you, or that I found myself on the internet, right? Like the length of this tree divided by this equals how many branches and how far they should be spaced from each other. There isn't. I couldn't find one. If there was one, I'd be using it, I promise. So just get out there and try. As you're doing, here are a few tips to keep in mind. Bypass pruners, they are sided, so you want to make sure that the blade is closest to your tree. That will give you the closest cut. No green left behind. If it's easier to pick it off with your finger, don't leave the juniper fluff behind because it will regrow into a branch very quickly. Training your tree will be a multi-year process. Little fluffs like this on the trunk are going to turn into a branch, so leave those where you wish you had a branch. Remember that we're pruning in early spring, so every cut you make will encourage branching and bushiness, so don't be afraid to give things a trim. You control the branch width by snipping off the end of the branch. Once you snip off the end of the branch, it will mostly stay that size. And here's the after for now, because remember, this is a multi-year process. So here's the after in year 1. Here's what it looked like before as a reminder, and after. So I wanted to take a couple of seconds to wrap up what I learned. First off, I wanted to share that juniper is actually not the classic tree that's used for Niwaki. It's more like trees like ilex, or Japanese white pine, or Japanese black pine. Juniper just happens to be something that I had in my garden that I started relatively cheaply, that I've been training, and something that I've noticed that grows really quickly and is forgiving to mistakes. So I feel like if you wanted to try this out, juniper's a great one to pick up pretty affordably to try and get your confidence going. Because I will share that the first few branches that I wrapped and tried to cut, I had no idea what I was doing. Even though I've probably watched hours of videos and read a lot of articles, it's still different when you're doing it than when you're reading or watching somebody else do it. So I would just encourage you to find something that you feel like you wouldn't mind if you mess up, or something that grows really fast. Those are probably the perfect beginner plants to practice on. So one day, if I get brave enough, maybe I'll invest in a Japanese white pine or black pine. They are absolutely beautiful. But for now, I'm very happy practicing on my juniper and trying to learn a new skill. I will, of course, share any updates as to how this grows over the years. I'm really excited to have something to play with in the garden, because after all, if you're not playing in the garden or learning something new in the garden, what are we even doing? Y'all know that I don't really love babbling in videos, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut this off and say thank you for watching. Hope you learned something. Hope you try it and not just watch me. Try it on something. Let me know in the comments if you try, or shoot me a message on Instagram with your pictures. I would love to see it. And have a great day. Hope you're getting out there to enjoy spring. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.